Hey everybody, this is April Bowden of Truth or Talk, coming at you today from my kitchen. This is where all the magic happens. I want to do this brief introduction of Truth or Talk episode 68 of You from Mars. Now, this is one of the most groundbreaking interviews that Verstein and I did, at least for us. It was a big pleasure and a great honor for us to have this interview with the late, great JIMMARRS. Now, if you're not familiar with JIMMARRS, he just passed away about a month ago at the age of 73, and he was one of the last of the great gumshoe reporters, the get in the street, get the interview, get the job done kind of guys. I mean, a straight shooter for certain. Now, he started working when he was in college. He was a very young man investigating the JFK assassination. And that's probably what he's most known for, which makes this episode coming out very timely, because as most of you have probably heard, the FBI will be releasing the JFK files. So it's a pity that he's not around to see it, but I think that he is, because of him and his work, he is one of the main reasons that people today have questioned the official narrative of JFK. JIMMARRS wrote a book by the name of Crossfire. Crossfire is a massive piece of work. I mean, it has, I tried to get through it. I read most of it, but it's quite intricate, and it goes through many, many ins and outs of his investigation. And this book was such a groundbreaking piece that OLIVERSTONE used this as his platform to make his film JFK. And so you can see that, I mean, in JFK, the film JFK really took to the public what a lot of people had who were kind of maybe underground, you know, tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy nuts, thought that way at the time. It kind of took that out to the mainstream. It became a mainstream narrative that people would question the JFK assassination, or the official story of the JFK assassination. And so JIMMARRS' work was very important. And for us to have him on our show was such a coup. Like, we, you know, when we came into this show, we didn't have the thought process that there was anybody that we wouldn't ask. We would just ask anybody. And, you know, we figured, well, what's the worst that could happen? If they say no, then, you know, we move on to the next interview. It's not a big deal. So when we saw JIMMARRS conducting other interviews with, I mean, mainstream, I mean, he was on all the major channels, and he worked for, or, you know, he appeared on Alex Jones, and he appeared on, you know, but on mainstream one shows too, Fox and CNN and so on. He was, because his work was so important, and his investigations into JFK were so vital, that, you know, he had some really pretty big interviews. So I have to give Verstein full credit for getting him on our show, because what it took, the reason that he said yes, I believe, is because she wrote him a personal note and sent it in the mail. So JIMMARRS, being this warm, sincere, kind of genuine guy, saw the level of sincerity that we had in wanting to have him on, and he said yes. And so we were hugely honored and floored and quite nervous, because we thought, this guy's kind of a big deal, you know, and he's going to be on our show. And we don't know if we're, you know, professional enough, or we big enough to have him on, so we're just going to go for it. We always had that attitude. Whether or not we, you know, had the goods to come up with it, we always tried our best, given the situation and what we had. So we had JIMMARRS on our show, and right away, when we were doing the sound check, you know, we asked him to say something into the mic, and his response was, "Earth to Mars, Earth to Mars." And we thought, oh, okay. And then we laughed, you know, so it broke the ice, and the nervousness kind of just went away. And he was with us exactly the way that he appeared on all of his interviews, which was straight shooter, no BS, but kind and generous with his knowledge, and just a very warm personality, and he didn't take himself too seriously. And given all of his deep investigations into some of the more gruesome, dark, insidious parts of the CIA and the conspiracies that took place after they were formed. And by the way, I mean, he was one of the, it was his work that actually brought to the public that the CIA even existed. I mean, before the JFK assassination, nobody really knew about them. They were pretty new form of government, secret government, okay? So that he started doing these investigations and finding out their involvement, it was that actually really gave the public that information, that let them know. So we have to just kudos to that guy. I mean, he's such a big part of what we do now and what we understand now. So it was a great honor for us to have him on our show, and he was just as great to talk to in person as we would have expected. And so being on this timely, that this week is the week that we are going to be releasing, or the FBI files are going to be released, and we're going to get to know possibly more about what happened during the JFK assassination. We want to just say what a great pleasure it was to have JIMMARRS on our show, and we'll never forget it. So, and he was also, just to say, I mean, he was one of the catalysts that actually got us to start the show, just as a little side note, because we had seen him in an interview talking about how when you follow your bliss, when you follow the thing that you're passionate about, somehow, even if you do that, you know, without the intent to necessarily make a living out of it, eventually you'll find your way to that. And so that sort of gave us one of the things that gave us the guts to say, let's just go for it. Let's just run a podcast. What the hell? So thank you to JIMMARRS, and you know, my condolences to his family, and what a great honor to have that spirit in our lives. So I hope you enjoy this episode. Until next time, peace, truth, and love, y'all.